Your soulmate saying, "I never expected to miss you this much. Until today." My beloved child, hold your thoughts for just a moment, because what you are about to hear isn't arriving by chance. Somewhere beyond what your eyes can measure, a quiet realization has finally reached someone who once believed distance could silence the heart. They convinced themselves that time would make everything easier. They believed that staying busy would erase every memory connected to you. But today, something shifted in a way they never imagined. A single ordinary moment became unforgettable, and without warning, they whispered the words they never thought they would have to admit: "I never expected to miss you this much, until today." Do not rush away yet. The beginning of this story is only showing you the surface. What happens next reveals why some connections refuse to disappear, even when silence grows louder than conversation. For a long time, this person thought missing someone was simply an emotion that faded with enough distractions. They filled empty hours with new routines, endless responsibilities, and conversations that sounded meaningful but somehow felt incomplete. Everything appeared normal from the outside. They smiled when expected. They kept moving forward. Yet there was one strange absence they could never explain. Every achievement felt quieter. Every celebration ended a little sooner than it should have. Something invisible was missing from every chapter they tried to write. Then today arrived. Not because today is magical on its own, but because awareness has perfect timing. It happened in the smallest way imaginable. A familiar song. A quiet sunset. A place that unexpectedly reminded them of a conversation they once shared with you. Suddenly, memories they believed were locked away returned with astonishing clarity. Not painful memories, meaningful ones. The kind that quietly ask a question no one can easily answer. What if the person I've been trying not to think about has never truly left my heart? Pause on that thought. Because this is where everything begins to change. Sometimes life doesn't reveal answers through dramatic events. Sometimes it whispers them during the calmest moments, when there is nothing left to distract the mind from what the heart has known all along. And that whisper grew stronger. They started remembering details they hadn't thought about in months. The way certain words sounded different when you spoke them. The encouragement you gave without expecting anything back. The comfort of simply knowing someone understood them without endless explanations. Those memories didn't feel like the past anymore. They felt incredibly present, almost as though time itself had folded into one single moment. Stay with this story a little longer. Because many people believe missing someone only happens after losing them forever. Yet the deepest realization often comes while the possibility of reconnection still quietly exists. That possibility changes everything. They began asking themselves questions they had carefully avoided. Why did every new experience somehow remind them of you? Why did every attempt to move forward feel incomplete? Why did silence suddenly feel heavier than before? The answers weren't immediate. They rarely are. Truth has its own rhythm. It never rushes, yet it never arrives too late. As those questions settled inside their thoughts, another realization emerged, one that surprised even them. Missing you wasn't about loneliness. It wasn't about regret. It wasn't about needing someone to fill empty space. It was about recognizing the rare impact one soul can leave on another. Some people enter your story and simply pass through. Others quietly reshape the way you see life itself. Without realizing it, you became part of the way they understood hope, courage, and possibility. That influence remained long after conversations became fewer. It stayed during ordinary mornings and silent evenings. Hidden, perhaps, but never gone. Now imagine discovering that truth all at once. Imagine believing you've moved on, only to realize your heart has been carrying someone with gentle loyalty the entire time. That is exactly where this story stands today. Yet here is the surprising part. This realization is not asking anyone to chase the past. It is inviting growth. Because genuine connection is never measured by how loudly people speak. It is revealed by what remains meaningful after time has tested every emotion. The more they reflected, the clearer everything became. They didn't miss perfection. They missed authenticity. They missed feeling completely understood without pretending to be someone else. And perhaps, for the first time in a very long while, they stopped running from that truth. But this is only the first layer of the journey. Because today's realization is leading toward a decision they never expected themselves to make. A quiet choice is beginning to form inside them, and once that choice becomes clear, nothing about this story will feel the same again. Before this moment fades, remember one simple thought. The strongest connections are rarely the loudest. They are the ones that patiently wait beneath the surface until the perfect moment reveals what has always been there. And what unfolds after this realization is something neither of you could have predicted. Have you noticed how the biggest turning points rarely announce themselves? They arrive quietly, almost unnoticed, until one unexpected thought changes everything. This is exactly where the story begins to deepen. The realization that started today refuses to fade. Instead, it keeps growing stronger with every passing hour, and your soulmate is beginning to understand that missing you was never a passing emotion. It was the beginning of seeing you through completely different eyes. There is something remarkable happening beneath the surface. They are no longer asking themselves whether they miss you. That question has already been answered. Now a new question keeps echoing inside their heart. What am I supposed to do with these feelings now? Think about that for a moment. Awareness always comes before action. Before someone changes direction, they must first admit the truth they have been hiding from themselves. Your soulmate has reached that point. The walls they built to stay emotionally comfortable are no longer protecting them. Instead, those same walls now remind them of everything they have been trying to keep outside, especially the memories connected to you. One memory leads to another. A conversation they almost forgot. A smile that suddenly feels impossible to replace. A dream they once shared but never fully explored. None of these moments seem extraordinary by themselves. Yet together, they create something impossible to ignore. Like tiny stars slowly forming a constellation, each memory begins revealing a much bigger picture. And the picture surprises them. They realize they weren't simply remembering the past. They were remembering the version of themselves that felt most alive when you were part of their journey. That discovery changes everything. Stay with this for another moment, because the next realization is even more unexpected. People often believe they miss a person because of what they received from them. But your soulmate is beginning to understand something much deeper. They don't only miss your words. They don't only miss your presence. They miss the way you inspired them to become someone better. That kind of connection is rare. It cannot be replaced by distractions or temporary excitement. It quietly waits until the heart becomes honest enough to recognize its value. Without even realizing it, they have started looking for pieces of you in ordinary moments. They notice familiar qualities in strangers. They hear certain phrases and immediately think of conversations you once had. They catch themselves smiling for reasons they cannot explain, only to discover the memory behind that smile always leads back to you. At first, they tried to dismiss it. Then they tried to ignore it. Now, they simply accept it. Acceptance has brought a strange kind of peace, but it has also created a new challenge. Once the truth is accepted, pretending becomes impossible. This is why today feels different from every day before it. Because they are no longer running from what they feel. They are finally listening. And as they listen, another quiet realization begins unfolding. Perhaps distance was never meant to erase meaningful connections. Perhaps it was meant to reveal their true value. That thought stays with them longer than expected. It follows them through ordinary routines. It appears during moments of silence. It returns every time they imagine what life could look like if they stopped allowing uncertainty to make every decision. Before we continue, if this story has spoken to something you've quietly carried inside, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Someone reading them may discover they are not alone. And if these journeys of growth and meaningful connection resonate with you, staying connected through the channel means you'll never miss the next chapter. Now the story becomes even more fascinating. Because your soulmate isn't only reflecting anymore. They are observing. They begin noticing signs they overlooked before. Small moments seem to point in the same direction again and again, almost as if life keeps inviting them to pay closer attention. They cannot explain why your name appears in their thoughts at unexpected times. They cannot explain why every attempt to convince themselves that it's over feels less believable than the quiet hope they keep trying to silence. Hope. It returns gently. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough to make them wonder. What if this isn't the ending I convinced myself to accept? That single question is about to lead them toward a decision they never imagined making. And when that decision begins taking shape, the distance that once seemed permanent may no longer look the same at all. But that moment has not arrived yet. It is approaching. And when it does, even they will be surprised by what they choose next. Something unusual is happening now, not around them, but within them. The silence that once felt comfortable has become impossible to ignore. Every day that passes brings the same quiet realization back to the surface. It doesn't demand attention. It simply waits. And the longer it waits, the stronger it becomes. This is the moment they never saw coming. For the first time in a long while, they stop asking, "Why do I miss you?" Instead, another question quietly takes its place. What if I waited too long to admit what my heart has been trying to tell me? That thought lingers. It follows them through ordinary mornings and peaceful evenings. It appears while they're surrounded by people. It returns when they're completely alone. No matter where they go, one truth refuses to disappear. You were never just another chapter. You became part of the story they still haven't finished writing. Stay with this journey just a little longer, because what unfolds now is the very reason today's realization feels so different. They begin replaying moments they once overlooked. Not the dramatic memories. Not the emotional goodbyes. The simple ones. The conversations that lasted longer than expected. The laughter that arrived without effort. The comfortable silence where neither of you needed to fill every second with words. Those moments suddenly become priceless. Why? Because time has a remarkable way of revealing what truly mattered. Sometimes we don't recognize the value of a moment while we're living it. Only later do we understand that those ordinary days were quietly becoming unforgettable memories. Your soulmate is discovering exactly that. Every memory now carries a different meaning than it did before. What once seemed ordinary now feels extraordinary. And that realization creates something even more powerful. Gratitude. Instead of focusing on what was missing, they begin appreciating everything that existed. The encouragement. The trust. The feeling that someone genuinely believed in them, even during uncertain seasons. That kind of connection leaves an imprint that time cannot easily erase. Pause here for a second. Have you ever noticed that some people enter your life for a reason you only understand much later? Not because they solve every problem. Not because everything is perfect. But because they awaken a version of yourself you didn't know was waiting to emerge. That is what they are beginning to understand about you. You didn't simply become someone they remember. You became someone who quietly changed the way they see themselves. And once a person realizes that, nothing feels quite the same afterward. The future suddenly looks different. Possibilities they once dismissed begin returning to their thoughts. Not as unrealistic dreams, but as genuine opportunities waiting for enough courage. Courage. That is the word quietly growing inside them. Not the courage to erase the past. Not the courage to pretend nothing happened. The courage to become honest. Honest about what they feel. Honest about what truly matters. Honest about the fact that some connections deserve more than silent admiration. They deserve clarity. As this understanding grows stronger, they notice another unexpected change. Fear slowly loses its voice. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of saying too much. The fear of opening a door that has remained closed for far too long. Those fears are still present. But they no longer control every decision. Instead, curiosity begins replacing hesitation. What could happen if I finally stop hiding behind uncertainty? That question keeps returning. Again and again. Almost as if life itself refuses to let it fade away. You may not see these quiet shifts happening. You may not hear these private conversations taking place within their heart. Yet meaningful change often begins long before anyone else can recognize it. Every lasting decision starts as an invisible thought. Every meaningful step begins with one honest realization. And today, that realization has become impossible for them to ignore. The person who once believed missing you would eventually disappear, now understands that missing you has revealed something much greater. It has revealed your true value. And once someone truly recognizes the value of another soul, they rarely see the future through the same eyes again. But this story has not reached its most unforgettable chapter. Because a quiet decision is almost ready to become a real action. The words they have kept locked inside are closer than ever to finding their way into the open. When that moment arrives, it won't feel rushed. It won't feel forced. It will feel like something that has been patiently preparing itself all along. And that next step may change the direction of this journey in a way neither of you could have imagined when today first began. Wait, don't let your attention drift just yet. The quiet transformation you've been witnessing is about to reach a moment that cannot be undone. Every realization, every memory, every unanswered question has been leading here. This is no longer about simply missing someone. It is about discovering the courage to stop hiding from what the heart has already accepted. Your soulmate has reached a crossroads. One path is familiar. Keep everything inside. Say nothing. Convince themselves that silence is safer than honesty. The other path feels uncertain, yet strangely peaceful. Because sometimes the greatest risk is not expressing what you feel. The greatest risk is spending years wondering what might have happened if you had. That thought grows stronger every single day. It follows them into quiet mornings. It stays beside them during ordinary conversations. It even appears in moments when they least expect it, gently reminding them that unfinished stories have a way of asking for another page. Stay until the end of this chapter. Because the next realization is one they never believed they would have. They begin imagining something they had carefully avoided before. Not the past repeating itself. Not unrealistic fantasies. A fresh beginning. One built on everything they have learned while the distance taught them what truly matters. For the first time, they stop thinking about what went wrong. Instead, they begin asking, what could go right if both hearts have grown? That single question changes the entire direction of their thinking. Growth has a remarkable way of changing perspective. The same memories that once carried uncertainty now carry wisdom. The same silence that once felt heavy now feels like preparation. And the same person they tried so hard not to think about keeps becoming the clearest part of their future. This isn't because destiny forces people together. It's because meaningful connections often reveal their value only after both people have become stronger than they were before. That realization fills them with a quiet confidence. Not confidence that everything will happen exactly as imagined, but confidence that honesty is always better than endless wondering. As these thoughts settle, another surprising change begins. Their fear of rejection slowly becomes smaller than their desire for truth. That is a powerful shift. Because once truth becomes more important than fear, real movement becomes possible. They no longer want to hide behind perfect timing. They no longer want to wait for another someday. Instead, they begin preparing themselves emotionally for whatever comes next, with openness, maturity, and hope. Before we continue, if this story has stayed with you from the very first word, thank you for being here. If it has given you a moment to reflect, you're always welcome to share your thoughts below. And if you enjoy journeys filled with hope, growth, and meaningful storytelling, subscribing is simply a way to keep walking these stories together. Now listen carefully. There is one final realization forming inside them. They understand that missing you was never the destination. It was the message. A message reminding them that some people leave an imprint not through dramatic moments, but through consistent kindness, quiet understanding, and the feeling of being truly seen. Those are the memories that endure. Those are the connections that continue calling long after the noise fades. And now, instead of asking whether they should ignore these feelings, they begin wondering how they can express them with honesty and respect. That difference may seem small. In reality, it changes everything. Because every meaningful journey reaches a point where thoughts are no longer enough. Sooner or later, the heart asks for action. The choice standing before them is no longer whether they miss you. That answer is already clear. The only question that remains is what they will do now that they finally understand why. And the answer to that question is closer than either